Okay, so our plan for the 1415 quiz review is to break the review up into 2 days. And then after we go through the 2 sections of the review, we'll do our 1415 quiz. So keep in mind what we're looking at here are all things angles, right? We have angle bisectors, but then we also have situations where complementary angles are formed by perpendicular lines. So we want to take our time and first and foremost make sure that we can, from the beginning here, identify angles and name them. So one of the important things about an angle is where its vertex lives. So here in the beginning here, we just want to name the vertex of each angle. And I want to jump ahead a little bit and just take note of something here. When I see an angle written in this form where they give me 3 letters, it's sort of a giveaway as to what the vertex is going to be. It's going to kind of have to be that middle letter, okay? But let's go ahead and look at some of the other questions here. So we have angle 5. Let's look at where he lives. And all I want to do is identify the vertex. So another way that we could name angle 5 would be to call it angle, and I don't want to put too much out here in this situation, but we could name that angle. My whiteboard would cooperate with me. We could also name angle 5 if I just go from the top to the bottom, angle NMO. Okay, it's another way that we could name that angle and think about with 3 letters. So the vertex of that angle, where angle 5 lives, is just simply the point M. A vertex of any angle is just going to be a point. Okay, so angle 3, let's take a look at where he lives. So we can think of a couple ways we could also name that angle. It could be RPQ, or it could be angle QPR. Either way, the vertex is going to live here at the point P. Okay, all right, so let's try the next 2 on our own. Let's answer those in the Ed puzzle. Let's name the vertex of angle 8. We'll take a look at where he lives and see if we can name the vertex there. So angle 8 is down here. And then we also want to look at angle NMP. So NMP, so we got angle 8 here, and then angle N to M to P, all right? Which is sort of a combination of angles 5 and 4. So let's see if we can name those 2 vertices in the Ed puzzle. Okay, so we're not trying to make anything too difficult here. Angle 8 lives at a vertex of the point O. All right, so hopefully you said O there was the vertex for angle 8. And then angle NMP, it's a giveaway where the vertex lives there when they give us letters. It's got to be the middle letter, right? Then where those 2 rays are going to connect. Okay, so now we're talking about sides of angles. And remember, sides of angles are rays, not straight up lines. They're rays, so they have an endpoint and then they have a non-endpoint or a spot that goes off to infinity. So when we look at angle 6, we're talking about angle 6. There's 2 rays that make that angle up. We have a ray going this way and then another ray going out this way. So I would name those 2 rays for angle 6. I have ray NM, and N has to have no arrow over it. Okay, N is the endpoint. And then the vertex has to be N to go to O. And M and then NO. So for all of these, if you think about it, all of these are going to have the same letter leading them off. So you know right away whether your answer is right or not. If you have the same letter leading them off, that's a good start. They're at the same vertex, same starting point. Okay, so let's lock in on angle 2. Where does he live? He's here and in this direction, right? So what are those 2 rays for angle 2? We have P is certainly the vertex, and the first one I drew there drives out to M, PM, and then the other direction of the ray starts at P as well and drives out to R. Okay, so let's try 7 and 8, and again, there's a trick here. You could probably answer both of these without even looking at the picture. I'll give you a hint for that. Okay, you could get both of these right without even looking at the picture, and I'll show you what I mean. But let's answer both of those in the Ed puzzle. So if you didn't pick up on what I was suggesting there without looking at the picture, my 2 rays would have to be OM. That would have to be one of them. The vertex has to live in the middle, so one of the rays has to go from O to M, and the other one has to go from O to P. And same thing here. This one has to go from M to O without even looking at the picture, and the other one has to go from M to N. The vertex always lives in the middle, so let's jump up to the picture and see where's MOP. MOP. So what are those 2 rays? We've got OM, which I've listed here, and we've got OP, which I listed. Okay. The next one, what do we have? OMN, from O to M to N. Again, without looking at the picture, I said it must be MO because MO runs this way. And we must also have MN, which runs that way. Okay, those are the sides of the angles. Okay, now we want to name the angles in different ways. So there's probably a number of ways that we could name some of these angles, but we want to look at angle Q to P to R. Q, P, R. Another way to name that angle would be angle 3. Okay, so let's think about angle 1. Where does that angle live? And you want to give me 3 letters in the right order that would designate that angle. So we go from this point to this point to this point. That's where angle 1 lives. There's a number of ways we could do this, but pick one of them that's correct from the Edpuzzle question. So hopefully you selected angle M to P to O. I just went left to right and picked the simplest letters. Keep in mind we could have labeled that angle M, P, N. That keeps on going that way. We could also label it angle O, P, M. We could label it angle N, P, M. All of those are all labeling angle 1. They all go in the same spot. Okay, so now we're going to play the game right, acute, or obtuse. So a right angle, right? Perpendicular lines form a 90-degree angle, which is a right angle. An acute angle is less than 90. Okay, and then an obtuse angle is greater than 90. Okay, so let's take a look at these situations over here and see if we can identify what we have. From U to Z to W, U, Z, W, is that right, acute, or obtuse? Let's answer that in the Edpuzzle. So hopefully you're able to see correctly that that is for sure a right angle, UZW. Okay, let's lock in on where YZW lives. Y to Z to W, is that right, acute, or obtuse? So hopefully we can see that if we went straight up here, this would be a right angle, so clearly this has to be acute. It's a little bit less than 90. Okay. Okay, now we're looking at angle TZW, so I'm going to go from T to Z to W. What do we think about that? Is it right, acute, or obtuse? So hopefully you said that TZW is obtuse. We can see if it were a right angle, we'd have to come straight down perpendicular to get to a right angle there. Okay, and the last one we have is U to Z to T. Pretty obviously what we're dealing with there is that right, acute, or obtuse, UZT. So hopefully we said that this one was clearly acute, much less than 90. Okay, so now we have some algebra that's going to be involved here, and we do have a picture, which is helpful, and I'll try to make sure on your quiz that if there's any algebra, there's a picture to accompany it. So we have DCE is 4x plus 15, and what I like to do is try to write that in as I go through here, and I know Mr. Blaylock does the same thing. We'll write in whatever information they're given, we kind of just systematically try to put that in so we can see it in front of us. So I have 4x plus 15, and then I have ECF is 6x minus 5. And I actually jumped ahead a little bit. I looked right to this and forgot to pay attention to this information up here. So let's double back and see what they tell us up there. CB and CD are opposite rays, just as they're pictured here. That just means we have a straight line 180 degrees along there. But then they tell us what's even probably more important, that CE, let's look where he lives. CE is here. And they're telling us that that bisects D to C to F. So what we have, those two angles that I labeled are actually going to be equal to each other because we have an angle bisector. So what's the equation that we could set up if we know we have this angle here and this angle here are equal to each other? What's our first equation that we could set up? Let's answer that in the Edpuzzle. So hopefully we said 4x plus 15, since we have an angle bisector, creates two equal angles, equals 6x minus 5. Okay, so I think everybody knows what's the next thing I'm going to want you to do. Solve for x. Okay, remember what this says is to find the measure of angle DCE. Well, we know what DCE is, but we need to know what x is first. If I know x, then I can easily get DCE. So solve for x here. Put the answer in the Edpuzzle. Okay, so hopefully you subtracted 4x from both sides. So we collect all the x's on one side. So I have 15 equals 2x minus 5. And then I would add 5 to both sides. So 20 is equal to 2x. Divide by 2, and we have x is equal to 10. So that's our first step. Next step now is tell me what the measure of angle DCE is. That's the final answer here. What is DCE? If x is 10 and we know DCE is 4x plus 15, tell me what angle DCE equals. Measure of angle DCE. What does that equal? So hopefully you just said DCE is equal to 4 times 10, since we now know that x is 10, plus 5. So that would be, I'm sorry, plus 15. I just did that last week too. So 40 plus 15 would be 55 degrees. That's our measure of angle DCE. Okay, and the second half of this reminds us that CG, which lives here, bisects FCB. So what happens in that situation? These two angles are equal to each other. So let's see, they give us FCG, that's 9x plus 3. And they also give us GCB, which is 13x minus 9. So what equation would we set up here? We have another angle bisector situation. What would be our equation to get started here? So hopefully out of the Ed puzzle you said we should start with 9x plus 3 equals 13x minus 9. Let's start with that. Okay, and now the very first thing we're going to have to do in order to find GCB, that's going to be no problem. I have GCB right here, but I can't get GCB if I don't know what x is. So solve this equation for x. Let's start with that. Okay, so hopefully if you solve for x correctly, you subtracted 9x from both sides. So we have 3 equals 4x minus 9. And then I would add 9 to both sides. Oops, like that. So 12 equals 4x. And then we divide both sides by 4. So I have x equals 3. And now the final situation here is to solve for angle G to C to B, which again we can just plug right into now that we know that x equals 3. So tell me what you get for the measure of angle GCB. Okay, so hopefully we just took 13x minus 9 and plugged 3 into that. So I have 39 minus 9 is 30. And then we plug into that. So the measure of angle GCB should just be 30 degrees if we did that correctly.